that, and I know Sid would say this quite often, maybe he said this to you too, but really getting a sense of the fact that it's a mystery, right, is for me, is so helpful in helping me stop trying. So like, you know, I'm trying to understand what Dickens saying in these videos. Give up trying, it's a mystery. Allows you to kind of relax back into just listening. You know, like, but I need to understand about, so thought does this, right? And then thinking does that. So how does this, it's a mystery. Our tiny minds cannot possibly comprehend. Our intellect can't understand something that the intellect can't understand. So why don't you just stop trying? You know, it's a mystery. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
And that I thought I had to get a clearer, better understanding of everything, how wisdom works, what it does, da 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 da. And instead, it's a mystery. Allows me to know that I can never comprehend it. I can never comprehend it. And in that space of dropping thought, because I realized the futility of it, there's an openness, there's a space, and it's into that space that the topic of module 4 arrives, right? Which is into that space is revealed peace and love and freedom and common sense. Like, you put it beautifully when I came to spend that time with you, where you said, in that space, the truth of the principles is revealed to you. You don't have to figure out what the principles are and how to apply them and how to see it's just my thinking and how to understand what the difference between thought and consciousness and mind is. It's a mystery. You'll never understand it. You'll never understand it. And then to me, it feels like... Yeah, go on.
On Sid's deathbed, he said, there's not a single person in the world that understands the principles. He says, I don't. Not intellectually. Why is that? The intellect can't understand what runs it, what lies beyond it. The computer can't understand electricity.
Yeah.
It can't understand what's outside of it and beyond it. And so the intellect only can know gaining, acquiring, storing, and remembering. It's all the intellect does and can do, and it does it beautifully. And that's very helpful if you want to learn and remember information, which is beautiful. It's a great thing. It's great to have this computer. It can never, ever help us with knowing, wisdom, love, kindness, understanding, true understanding, realization, insight. All the things human beings want will never be understood by the intellect. And so, like you said, at some point we just surrender. We just stop trying. And in that moment of stop trying, for no reason, we start feeling better. No reason. And in that feeling better, we just start intuitively knowing what to do without having to think about what to do. Whether it's driving, knowing how to drive a car, making life and death decisions, you don't have to think every decision you make while you're driving, or you would be in accidents constantly. So but what you mentioned, Nick, about wisdom is not information to be gained. It's a gift that comes, that's a mysterious gift that when we fall out of knowing of the intellect, there's a different kind of knowing reveals itself. Call it common sense, call it intuition, call it just knowing how to deal with life, knowing how to live your life without having to think about it. It brings feelings that uplift, peace, joy, love, happiness, kindness. It brings guidance through difficulties in life. These are the gifts that can't be gained by the intellect, but are given to us freely when we allow our intellect to, when we set aside our ego, our intellect, and just be ourselves, just relax into the now, just be ordinary. And then they're given freely, and you go, oh my God.
Yeah, and from that space, you
That's
look out
always
into
been
the world,
granted.
and where previously you've been trying to figure out how to get a better connection with your kids, or how do I solve this problem at work? In that space, there's a filling up with kindness and compassion. And when you look out into the world, it's like having rose-colored spectacles on is the best way I can describe it. You look out in the world and you feel compassion, you feel love, you feel connection. It's, you don't even feel it, you know it, because it's what you are. You feel, you talk to me about all the spiritual teachings that we see are about, you know, like, I'll get the expression wrong, but that like falling away from, filling up, empty out, fill up, give it away. And in that space, we all know it. It's those days where you feel good for no good reason at all, right? But we just feel touched by life. And in that space, we are the people we love come to mind, and we feel fondly and warmly about them. A problem at work suddenly has an ingenious but incredibly simple solution we can't believe we never saw before. A new idea we've never thought of for something to go and do or create in our lives shows up. And kindness and helpfulness and kind action and appreciation of beauty and art and nature and like all those things that we're seeking and searching for, that we think we're going to get by figuring out how to make more money, or figuring out how to get our kids off electronics, right? Or figuring out a better diet and how to lose 20 pounds, right? It's like, if we just get ourselves to go running regularly, it's if we just give up smoking, you know, it's everything that we're looking for that we think is the other end of figuring something out. So simple in that space. That intangible space before thought, it's just life looks beautiful. And then when life looks beautiful, it's so easy to navigate. That's what's on offer. That's what's on offer. Knowing that that is there, knowing that it's a thought away. There's no falling into that space and then you find love, or then you find an awesomeness of the universe, or it's I love it that you say it's like it's just revealed to you. It's just so staring you in the face, undeniably so, in that space. And from there we can go to work and we can be with our kids and we can go running or whatever we're up to, clean the toilet, right? Drive a car in that space. And life looks easier, it feels effortless. It's just, you know, this whole year, the whole theme for this program, The Deeper Peace of Mind, is about enjoying life. And it's a space in which life presents itself in an enjoyable way. People present themselves enjoyably. And we interact them in a way that's just enjoyable and doesn't require thought. We're just present, we're in life, we're no longer thinking about life and how to get life better. That's the difference. It's like we're just moving through our tasks and our day. We're not sitting in a corner on a meditation mat, omming, being Zen. We are thrown back into the form of life, but in a way that's just so rich. That's, to me, there's the juice of life in that experience. It's not a empty of thought Zen state. It's a rich flowing of ideas and color and people and movement, and people show up to love. New people, opportunities and possibilities come into our world that didn't exist before. it's a really cool place that's worth spending some time hanging out in and having a look at, eh? I know you've been pointing me at that for years, right? But honestly, but really,
But really,
but really.
but really, it's like saying what you've been looking for, you already have, and it's been right under your nose the whole time. That, see, I didn't know this. When I was younger, the instant I started feeling anxiety, I started thinking harder about myself or my life, mostly about myself. In other words, the instant I felt anxiety, I'd go into my intellect and speed up my thinking, trying to figure out how to deal with this and how to deal with life. And it was so innocent. All I was doing is what I had been trained all through school. If you have a problem solve and use your intellect, and go to experts and have them tell you the information you need to remember to do well on the test of life. But even though I got information, I read books and all kinds of books, I talked to all kinds of people, I got all kinds of advice on how to live my life, I was still really anxious. Really, really anxious. I just kept looking into my intellect to solve it. So plain and simple, I'd start to feel anxious and I'd think harder. Now, for whatever reason, when I met Sid Bangs, he was the most opposite of any teacher I'd ever had. Because he had no interest in using the intellect in any way to try and be of help. He had no information to impart he thought would help us. He had enormous respect for having an insight that allows us to just be a little more relaxed with whatever we're experiencing. For me, the metaphor that's always helped is just dropping into this space. Instead of being caught up in my thinking, I step back from my thinking and stop trying so hard to think. So ostensibly, I just have less thinking on my mind rather than more thinking. My whole strategy, my whole life is when I feel anxious, have more thinking. And then here's this other opposite. When I feel tensions, anxiety, to have less thinking on my mind is always the cure and solution.
Your microphone's gone off. You went bang, 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 then you vanished. Speak again, you might be back. Yeah, you're back now.
Okay, I have no idea what
But
happened.
on that note, Dick, can you remind me, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about, so there'll be people listening who are like, yeah, but I have physical symptoms or I have pain. That means that, you know, stepping back away from, how does this help with pain? And I know you shared the example of when you were having your operation and caught up in all the pain of them trying to, you know,
I've never had a client be able to trump me with their symptoms. I've had them all.
Yeah.
Right. Pain. I had an unexpected emergency where I had to have emergency surgery. And then in the next 3 years, I had 4 surgeries, actually 5. And the procedures and not just the operations, but the procedures and things I had to do, I experienced excruciating pain. The emergency that happened to me, the doctor said, that's probably the most painful thing a human being can experience. And I had, during that time, I had some powerful realizations. In other words, I'm in pain. And it's no different than when I'm stressed or anxious. I would lean into my thinking. So I'm in pain and I'm going, oh God, I can't stand this. This is going on forever. How long is this going to take? I can't do it. This is so painful. I'm being tortured. This is the worst. And then I realized I was leaning into my thinking and thinking I was having more and more thoughts, period. Just more and more thoughts, all of which were continually creating more and more dissatisfaction, upset, hurt, on top of the pain. And when I realized that, for one instant, I stopped thinking. So instantly, I had less thinking. Less thinking is the cure for everything that ails people psychologically, not more.
Yeah.
Not thinking about our thinking about our feeling, thinking about our behavior is in a sense waking up just for a moment, just not paying attention to our thinking.
And that includes, I need to think about the principles now because I'm suffering. So I know I'll think about the principles. And that's so common. I see people over and over again go, no, I'm not going to think about the symptoms. I'm not going to think about the pain. I'm not going to think about the fact I'm in the dentist's chair. I'm not going to think about it. But what's happening is I'm going to tell myself it's thought. I'm going to tell myself it's transient. I'm going to tell myself it's over in a minute. I'm going to tell myself there's an intelligence behind
more
it.
More thinking.
Yeah.
But
because it's about the principles, I think that's okay thinking to have.
Yeah.
Even that.
Even that this is one of the most common mistakes with people that have learned the principles, is that they recognize their tension, stress, upset, and they do more thinking, not just about their experience, but now they're adding more thinking about what they think they know about the principles.
Yeah. Or what they think they don't know about the principles, more likely, like, this I don't know anything, if only I knew it better. Nothing's changed. I thought it had, nothing had, now I'm really disappointed.
Thinking.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think about. You do more, you have more difficulty. You do less, things start feeling better and going better.
There's I remember doing a program with George Pransky really early on in my exploration of the principles, and he challenged us for homework to come up with anything we could think of which an understanding of the principles wouldn't be helpful. Anything, like he said, anything. And I came back and said, migraines are horrible. It's a fact, George, that migraines are horrible. And I don't care if you teach me anything you like, that's not going to change my experience of a migraine. Like factually, they're awful. And then there I sit, like within weeks of that conversation, having a completely different experience of migraines. It's like there is nothing. The loss of a loved one, right? A terminal diagnosis, being put in prison, being bankrupt, divorce, like the things that the events and circumstances that so many people think would be an exception to what we're talking about here. There is no situation, circumstance, or event in life, no part of life, that knowing where to look, knowing to look to that space isn't helpful. It really is one solution, right, to every problem. Whatever ails you, it's so simple. There's one place to look, and in that space, everything you need to know, every action, whether to call the doctor, not call the doctor, to take the medication, to stop the medication, to have another drink, to not have another drink, to go running, to not go, like everything you need to take care of the situation, everything you need to move in a healthier direction is revealed to you in that space. Can't be found in picking up thinking and leaning into it.
Can't be found that way.
It's like there's one cupboard that's got all the answers and everything you're looking for. And you're running around the house looking everywhere else. But there's one place to go look.
It's such a simple formula, but less thinking, more wisdom.
Yeah.
If there's less thinking, there will always be more wisdom. What do I mean more wisdom? There'll be more feelings that uplift, and there'll be more knowing on how to deal with whatever is going on without the work and the effort and the tension.
That's why when you hear people talking about, or when Sid used to say, right, listen for a feeling, that if you're listening to a podcast, or you're listening to a teacher, or you're just out and about in life and you start feeling better, guaranteed, like, your thinking is going to get healthier in that space. So you're looking for a, am I feeling better? Not am I understanding it more, always. So when you're listening, if you come away from something and all you feel is like, oh, I didn't get anything from that, I didn't get anything from that, it's like, but weirdly, I feel a bit better. That's the thing to look to, because in that space of feeling better, that then will be followed by insights, inspiration, all the rest of it. It's like the feeling first, guys, the feeling first, always. And in fact, only. It's so hard to drop the idea that you need to understand stuff. But you know, if there's anything you need to understand, it follows the finding the nice feeling. So it's kind of like looking, when you're listening, like noticing that, noticing that's what you're looking for when you're listening to Sid, when you're listening to Dickin, when you're listening to anything, is that if you start to feel a sense of peace, if you start to feel a sense of hope, if you start to feel a sense of lightness or inspired, whatever, those intangible things that you can't describe, that's this cupboard. It's the feeling of the cupboard. Like, you're close to the cupboard, right? It's a feeling of knowing, yeah, that way. And you follow that feeling, you won't go far wrong, because then everything you're looking for gets revealed to you in that space. So is even the intellect grasps on to listen for a feeling and then tries to understand, well, how do I do that? And it's one of those mysterious things again. It's a mystery. But we can get sensitive to the direction of following that nicer feeling versus trying to figure out what everybody's saying.
I have a new metaphor. Wisdom is like sleep. You can't keep thinking and fall asleep. You can't discover the gifts of sleep. Everybody loves a good sleep, because all the gifts, you get refreshed, you get renewed, you feel better, you think clearer. Oh my God, it's the most prized thing. We all have learned that if we get into bed and we let go of everything we're thinking, at some point, if we're tired, we're going to fall asleep. Now, wisdom is more like sleep than anything you could learn in a classroom, because they don't teach us how to sleep. You don't go to a classroom to learn how to sleep. You can't do sleep. You can't learn a technique to sleep. It's when I get in bed and let go of everything, it's not a technique. It's not a technique. It's not, I didn't learn that from someone. In the same way, when we're feeling anxiety, falling into wisdom is exactly, it's more like falling asleep than it is like learning something new from a teacher. When I fall asleep, I'm not thinking about the principles. Thank God. I'm not thinking about anything. I have to let go of everything. I didn't know that during the day I could fall away from my thinking, just like I do when I get into bed, if I really let go of everything. Now, sometimes I get into bed and I worry and then I feel anxious and I don't fall asleep. But at some point, I just let go of what I'm thinking and then I fall asleep. It's the same with wisdom. I work with clients. They'll be trying to figure it out, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out. And at some point, they just sort of fall back into this ordinary, natural state of rest, of openness. And then wisdom reveals itself every time, free, no charge. You get all the gifts of wisdom, just like you get the gifts of sleep, of being renewed and refreshed. Psychologically, wisdom is our renewing and refreshing default setting, that when we are no longer holding any thoughts, they're free to flow. And in that, that's what rest is, that's what peace is. You don't know anything with your intellect. You don't need to know anything with your intellect. And then for no reason, we start to be renewed in spirit, refreshed, renewed, given to. So Koizi points out to me that all during the day, my wife, Koizi, all during the day, she'll see me when I start to get a little uptight. And then it's like I'm taking a little psychological nap. I'm not thinking about the principles.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just resting. And then I see the trees and I see the birds and I hear my wife in the kitchen, and I'm just in the flow of life.
Yeah, that very, like, just the very physical action of, there was a movie on at Christmas, I don't know if you had it over where you were, it was called Last Christmas, right? It was the big Christmas movie here. Did you see it?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, well, in the story, there's a I won't ruin it if you haven't seen it, but there's a guy and there's a girl, and the message the guy keeps saying to the girl is, look up. She's like scurrying around all day like this, doing her job, doing a thing, doing whatever she's doing. And he invites her to look up, and there's amazing things up here, right? In just, ornaments and decorations, but the whole message of the movie is like, open up, right? Look up. And just that I catch myself over and over again, like, I don't realize I'm out on a dog walk, and all of a sudden I wake up to the fact that I'm head down trying to figure something out. And I'm like, oh, and it literally, and this isn't a technique, right? But it seems to me like I look up and there's the openness of everything. And as I'm looking up, it's impossible to hold. All those thoughts suddenly get all slippery and they're gone, right? And I look up and I see the trees and the sky and the space and the openness, and the feeling of that is wide open. Like, I want to be wide open, not constricted and closed, especially if I'm stuck or if I don't like the experience I'm having. Because when we open up, those off they go, right? And something new happens, or something fresh. There's a freshness there that just, I don't know, it's just a more enjoyable way to live life. Open, not head down, pounding through my dog walk while totally not seeing any of it, while trying to figure something out inside of my head. And here is where I get the best solutions to wherever it is that I actually need. Right here, thought problems dissolve into nothing. They vanish. They're not even there to be solved. In that space, I'm suddenly struck by a memory of something really cute my kids did that morning out of the blue. And I'm like touched, and I fill up with love, and I have an experience of that. Like, really beautiful things come to mind in that space. Lovely memories, wonderful ideas of the future, possibilities, hope, beautiful feelings in that space. That's
why we talk about wisdom. It's the gift giver. It's the eternal Santa Claus. It's the giver of life. It's all we have to do is be open and receptive to to be, just stand wide open, not holding a single thought in mind. And we're always given gifts. Always given gifts. We've been talking about them. Clarity, perspective, common sense, love, peace, joy, presence, kindness are given freely to any human being. So that's why the term wake up has been used in spiritual teaching. We're asleep in our thinking, no matter what we're thinking. And then we wake up out of that thinking. We fall back from that thinking. It's paradoxical that we fall up, right? We fall back and we start to lift up in feeling. We become uplifted in feeling. And so we wake up. So that's what I love learning about thought, is when I realize thought, I don't do more thinking like I used to. I wake up into this wide openness. And always when I'm wide open, uplifting, waking, enlivening, creativity, newness, fresh, alive, always. That's where the answers are found. That whole sense that this space of wide openness where we're not holding anything in mind is the ultimate answer. Sid says it's what every human being in the world's looking for, and they don't know it. Because when you get there, you get the free gifts. You don't have to look for them. You don't have to discover them. They're given freely. That's the beauty of this.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of wisdom, the eternal gift giver.
The eternal Santa Claus. I love that. What a perfect note to end on. That's why you want to be open to wisdom, the perfect Santa Claus. Thank you, Dicken.
Yeah, you're welcome.